Welcome to the Sweet Mercy web auction. I hope you're having a great time. Thank you for being here. Don't worry about our costumes. We wear them to keep our identities a secret and keep helping people like you. At Sweet Mercy, we understand that you've been through tough times. Our product is designed to deal with killers. We aim to bring closure to families who have suffered a lot. When a murderer gets away on a technicality or the police make mistakes, that's where we step in. Our investigators make sure the accused is guilty and our team takes them to a safe place. To avoid any lingering questions, we make sure the guilty confess fully before anything happens. You don't have to take my word for it. You can download the complete series of interrogations for free. They can be helpful for therapy. Let me quickly explain how to navigate to the site. The main video is in the center. The row of blue boxes below is for you, our guests. The green row above is for our returning supporters. On the right, you'll see the bidding history, and on the left, you'll find information about tonight's product and their background. They can see and hear us too, by the way. Many guests like to talk to them directly. Enjoy the auction. We know that many of you can't afford to participate in the auction, but we believe that the families of the victims should be here. Each of you will have free access to the winning benefactors live feed on Saturday night. And guess what? One lucky family will even get to join in. Now, here's the exciting part. You'll each get a chance to share your story. After that, there will be a short break, and the benefactors will choose who they want to sponsor. If your benefactor bids the highest, you get to visit our operation in person. Absolutely no joke. Tonight, we're talking about a guy named Carl Anthony Bateman, 34 years old. He was born in Boston, had a tough childhood, and has been causing trouble in society since he left home at 17. Between June and December 2019, he brutally attacked 4 women. 2 of those 4 women's families are here tonight to confront the killer, and the third guest actually survived the terrifying experience. Bateman's first victim was Julie Edwards, who had just finished her sophomore year of college. Benefactors, let's hear what her parents, Helen and Lawrence, have to say. You can begin when you're ready. Howdy, folks. I ain't too savvy with this dark web stuff, but we wrestled with it for a good 4 hours just to talk to you folks in these tribal masks. If you'd told me a month ago that I'd be spilling my guts on this contraption, I'd have thought it was some crazy story. But here we are. We figured your invite might be a scam, like something out of a weird movie plot. Can't tell one way or another, but it looks real enough for now. Just hope you're not asking for money. Helen's not up for talking much, so I'll do the talking for both of us. We're here to see that sorry guy pay for what he did. Glad he's watching. Anything to say, Bateman? No, didn't think so. I wanted you taken alive so I could say my piece in court, but this is even better. When we're lying awake at night wishing we'd gone with our girl, your suffering will be our lullaby. I'd love to be the one making you pay. We're from Tennessee. Julie was up in Boston for college. We wanted her back home for the summer, but she wanted to work and share an apartment with her friend Aaron. Aaron was with her part of that last night. It was June 14th, 2019, a Friday. They hit up some bar they liked according to their Instagram things, which were full of the place. As the night went on, Julie's so-called friends left with different boys, and no one bothered to make sure my daughter got home safe. I guess that's where this awful person saw her. The person running the auction interrupts. I'm sorry to cut in, sir, but based on our questioning, you were given the wrong information about that. According to Mr. Bateman himself, he first saw Ms. Julie leaving campus 2 weeks before the night in question. Lawrence Edwards continues. Guess I shouldn't be surprised. Those detectives weren't right about much. They couldn't even gather evidence without messing up our only chance to catch the guy. We've probably been told a bunch of easy answers. Why should the police bother with the truth when it's usually the same old story? They don't care about what really happened. They only care about when they can go home at night. Sorry if that bothers anyone. I know there are good ones out there, but none of them were on Julie's case, that's for sure. It was after midnight when cameras showed Jules leaving the bar. She liked walking. Her apartment was only a few blocks away. Although, I guess that doesn't matter if he already knew where she lived. The police said there was no forced entry. Do you know how he got inside, sir? The person running the auction explains. He made a copy of her key. Bateman went into the apartment shortly after they left and hid in the coat closet. It was his third time doing that. But Miss Edwards wasn't alone when she returned on the previous occasions. He managed to leave without anyone noticing once everyone was asleep. Sir Lawrence E. Edwards, disgusting piece of garbage. How can you be sure he was telling the truth? The person running the auction responds. Oh, he started with lots of lies. They all do. Most information we get during torture is false, but we've perfected our technique. While our guests enjoy seeing them suffer, it also breaks their spirit so they're easier to control when the real interrogations begin. We go all out to make the product believe. Well, I'm not allowed to say that part. You might have seen something like truth serum on TV, but real life is a bit different. Very specific conditions must be met for reliable results. Our team of psychologists and physicians explains it much better in the full video, and in the end, they give you a complete factual report. I assure you, Mr. Edwards, I would never repeat anything that wasn't 100% certain. Lawrence Edwards continues. I think I got most of that. So far, you've been more reliable than the police anyway. I'm sure we'll be watching that video as soon as this is over. But as for what happened next, well, I don't know if I can, Julie was just such a sweet girl. Why her? Huh, bastard. Why her? The autopsy report tells a detailed story, but I'm starting to realize I didn't know as much as I thought. I'm not sure if I can handle more, but I owe it to my baby to listen. She didn't deserve this, and she certainly didn't deserve to die alone. I want everyone to know what this pile of human waste did to get his kicks. If it were up to me, I would make him feel exactly what his victims felt, step by step, stopping just before it killed him so I could do it over and over. Yeah. I like the sound of that. Lawrence Edwards. It wasn't enough you blindsided her and tied her up. No, you had to go the extra mile. She wasn't going to wear that costume voluntarily, certainly not for you. We were eventually told she was dressed like a character from a kid's show called Sailor Moon. For some reason, I felt compelled to look it up, and it left me even more confused. Apparently, it's common to sexualize cartoon characters. What the hell is wrong with people? I saw something titled SpongeBob Squirt Pants. I don't care what consenting adults do to get their jollies, but you can't tell me kids don't see that stuff. Mr. Edwards is upset. He strangled her when it was over. The bonds on her wrists and ankles tore her skin as she struggled to... When he was... Mr. Edwards is distressed. I'm sorry, I can't... Can you? Since you know more than us anyway, can you please just tell us what really happened that night? The person running the auction responds. Yes, sir, I can. Minutes after she returned home, a call from Aaron was placed on speaker, while Julie stood only feet from the coat closet where Bateman was hiding. He would have figured it out anyway, but their conversation confirmed your daughter would be alone for the night. Approximately 30 minutes later, the strip of light beneath the door went dark, and Bateman waited a few moments longer before quietly emerging from the closet. The apartment was dark except for a soft yellow glow at the end of a hallway, and music could be heard playing over the sound of running water. Julie didn't hear the bathroom door open, and she didn't see the shadow growing on the shower curtain. She only noticed Bateman's presence when the curtain was violently ripped away. He left her no chance to react. As she opened her mouth to scream, he stepped forward, punching her across the jaw. Her head snapped backwards, impacting the tiles as she fell and leaving her unconscious. Bateman moved her to the bed where he quickly dressed her as Sailor Moon before binding her hands and feet. The costume was purchased specifically for this occasion, and he took the time to style Julie's long blonde hair in the character's likeness. She regained consciousness before his work was done, but she was unable to move due to the restraints. He ignored her cries until finished. Then he gave her the same two options he would later present to his future victims. Play along and live, or try to escape and die. Julie was unfamiliar with Sailor Moon, but seeing it as her only chance of survival, she chose to play along. Bateman chose the role of Prince Demando for himself as Mr. Edwards is distressed. Wait, I don't know if we can hear that part right now. We can't. After that, the autopsy listed her cause of death as asphyxiation. Is that accurate? Did he force her to live through all of those horrible things only to choke her in the end? Auctioneer. Yes, I'm afraid so. Ms. Edwards was subjected to various role-playing scenarios for several hours before being strangled during the final act. Lawrence Edwards. I want to make that monster bleed. Every single night I dream of doing hideous, unspeakable things to him, and I'm disgusted by what he's turned me into. You people have already given us more than we dared hope for. I don't know what these other folks have been through, but even if we don't get to be there in person, what you've done for us is more than enough. From the bottom of our broken and battered hearts, thank you. Auctioneer. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Edwards. We know it isn't easy to hear these things, especially from strangers, but you're among people who understand this pain all too well. Each and every member of our team has been affected in a similar way. We take this work very seriously, and our main goal is to provide some semblance of comfort during these difficult times. Whether you find peace in knowing this man will never hurt another soul, or simply in his harsh punishment, makes no difference. We all grieve differently and heal at our own pace. Benefactors, are you ready to hear from our second guest? After committing his first murder, Bateman was overcome with paranoia, but when no detectives appeared at his door over the following weeks, that paranoia slowly turned into confidence. Then, on October 2nd, 2019, he decided to do it again. This time his victim was 19-year-old Natalie Laird. Tonight, her father and two brothers are here with us. Mr. Laird, you may begin when ready. Jason Laird. Dad? Hey everyone. I'm Jason. This is my brother Tony. And I don't think Dad is as ready as he thought. Is it all right if I ask a question instead? Thanks. I want to believe this is real, but how do we know that's a live feed on Bateman? Or that you guys even have him? He hasn't reacted to anything that's been said. I want to see him hold up 4 fingers, without any camera glitches. Well, auctioneer. Mr. Bateman, we warned you about this. The young man is speaking to you. Have it your way. Frank, 1 second contact, please. My apologies, Mr. Laird. Carl's microphone is muted, but the person you see entering the room is our head of security, and the device in his hand is a cattle prod. I'm sure Mr. Bateman will be more amenable to your request momentarily. Ah, yes, 4 fingers. Is that satisfactory, or would you like him to sit up and look at the camera? Please, don't hesitate to ask. We understand your skepticism completely, and we're happy to oblige any reasonable requests to put your mind at ease. Jason Laird. No, sir, I think that does it. Thank you. So, you're saying if we talk about what happened to Nat, one of those rich people might decide to bid on our behalf? Yay. I think I can see what you're doing, but everything else aside, our concern is knowing he can't hurt anyone else. Beyond that, he deserves whatever he gets. Natalie was a private person, though. She wouldn't want everyone knowing what that bastard put her through. I know the details are all on the download anyway, but we haven't decided if we're going to watch it, or which parts we'll watch if we do. We would appreciate it if you didn't recount Nat's final moments here as well. I'll live with what I saw for the rest of my life, and despite how they feel right now, I don't want my father or brother to be plagued by the same images. Auctioneer. Absolutely, sir. That is entirely at your discretion. Though, you must never blame yourselves for the actions of a monster. You're a very bright, well-spoken young man, and I'm sure you have great things ahead. Thank you for your time. With reports of a second murder, warnings of the cosplay killer flooded local news networks, but his identity remained a mystery. Then, on the morning of November 4th, Vanessa Jordan's body was discovered by her boyfriend after failing to appear for a breakfast date. Andrew spoke to CNN saying he wasn't yet aware of the recent killings and struggled to process every aspect of the grueling scene. Though he did not recognize the popular Pokemon character, Misty, I'm sure it's a likeness he won't soon forget. His chilling call to 911 is included in our final report. Benefactors, since there is no one here to speak on Vanessa's behalf, we will move on to our third and final guest. She is the only survivor of Mr. Bateman's madness. Please welcome Michelle Perkins. Shelley Perkins. Hey, you can call me Shelley. I didn't think this would be real either, but there he is. That's a face I'll never forget, even without the red jumpsuit. Look at me, bastard. No, don't glance and turn away. I want you looking right at me for every word of this. I said look at me. Auctioneer, Frank, 2-second contact, please. Excellent. Mr. Bateman, next time it will be 3 seconds. My apologies, Ms. Perkins. Please, continue. Shelley Perkins. Oh, I don't mind a bit. Feel free to zap him anytime he looks away. If you people want a story in exchange for a chance to do it myself, fine by me. I'm glad the Lairds don't want to go, and I'm sorry to Mr. Edwards, but nobody deserves this more than I do. The first time I saw Bateman was when he appeared outside of my sociology class. He got way too close just to compliment my shirt. I suppose the fact it had Inuyasha on it is relevant. That's another anime. Cartoon. Like Sailor Moon and Pokemon. He said he noticed it before class, like it was normal to wait around for an hour just to compliment a stranger's shirt. I tried to say thanks and walk away, but he followed me. I didn't want him to know which dorm was mine, so I walked to a coffee shop. Thankfully, a few friends from the drama club were there, but when I tried to point out my stalker, he was gone. 30 minutes later, we left as a group, and there was still no sign of the psycho. That was a Tuesday. By Friday, I forgot he existed entirely. Midterms were over, and everyone was getting ready to go home for Christmas break. The cosplay killer had everyone on edge. If he had a specific target, like attacking blondes or a certain type of person, maybe people would have dyed their hair and gone on with their lives. But no one knew who he'd target next. Julie had blonde hair like Sailor Moon. Natalie's hair was pink like Sakura's, and Vanessa was a redhead like Misty. Apparently, mine is black like Kagomi's. Isn't that right, Carl? Oh, Kagome is one of the main characters from the Inuyasha cartoon. I'll try to keep those parts simple, even if it kills me to call it a cartoon. This isn't the time for an anime lesson. Anyway, I stayed in that night. Pretending to live alone was nice, and my dorm felt like a safe place. Most people didn't even lock their doors, but I always did. I was up late watching YouTube when there was a soft knock at the door. It wasn't uncommon. Plenty of others were staying through the holiday, and college kids aren't known for their love of grocery shopping. I thought one of the stoners was looking for snacks again. The moment I saw that creep's face, I knew I made a terrible mistake. I tried to slam the door, but he pushed back, and it hit me hard enough to blur my vision. The struggle was brief. I only remember flashes, but it ended with him beating my head against the hard floor and everything going black. There were no dreams, only oblivion. When I did regain consciousness, it was like waking from a deep sleep until memories of the attack flooded back. My head ached like it was being split in half. As I became more aware, I could hear Bateman moving around but didn't want him to know I was awake. Still thinking we were in my dorm, I hoped to make a run for the door. I wish I had looked around first. As I tried to rise, I noticed several things at once. We weren't in my dorm anymore. We were in a dirty basement. I found myself dressed in a costume that's easiest to describe as a slutty schoolgirl. Like Kagome's outfit, and a fuzzy handcuff was attached to my ankle, chained to a metal bar in the concrete floor. The chain made noise, and he heard it right away. He was wearing a red jumpsuit with a big beaded necklace like the Inuyasha character. I've had a tough life, but I'm a survivor. When I saw the sick look in his eyes and that disgusting grin, I made a decision to play along, no matter what. I had hoped my knowledge of the show would convince him the cuffs were unnecessary, but sadly, serial killers are harder to manipulate than it looks in the movies. But I didn't give up. Oh no. I played along for the worst 3 hours of my existence, as he systematically ruined my life and a beloved childhood memory at the same time. It's no surprise this was the only way he could get a woman. He's infinitely more disgusting naked. Thankfully, his whopping 4 inches didn't do much tearing as he assaulted me. That made things a little easier. Then, it finally happened. If he wanted to act out one of the biggest scenes of the series, he had to uncuff me. By then, he was in such a hurry to unlock it. He dropped the key twice in the process. It took every ounce of my restraint not to run right then. He was watching me for any sign of defiance, and I knew I would die before I let him get that cuff on me again. Another part of my soul withered as I swallowed my vomit and forced myself to play along for a few more minutes. We were standing with my back against the wall, and within arm's reach, the liquor bottle was still right where I set it. I bit my lip until it bled to keep from gagging as I waited for him to get lost in the moment, and I ran my fingers through his nasty, oily hair to position my hand as closely to the shelf as possible. As his eyes started to roll back, I grabbed the bottle and hit him on the head with all my strength. The bottle didn't break, and he didn't fall like I thought he would. He just groaned and took a few steps back, staring at me with intense hatred. I knew he would catch me quickly if I ran, so instead I charged at him like a bull and hit him on the head once more. The impact went up my arm, but I hardly felt it. My focus was on Bateman. He was on the ground and bleeding, but I wasn't sure if he was really unconscious or faking it. That's when I saw how close he had fallen to the handcuffs. My heart raced as I approached, but somehow I got the cuff around his wrist. He groaned again as it clicked shut, and I ran from the room without looking back. I didn't notice or care that my only clothes were a see-through blouse and a tiny green skirt with nothing underneath. My only thought was finding an exit. If I had been thinking clearly, I would have attacked him until there was nothing left. Unfortunately, that didn't occur to me until Bateman was already screaming to be released. By then, I had reached the top of the basement stairs that led to a dark kitchen. I couldn't see anything. Using the wall as a guide, I made my way through the strange house until my hand found an open doorway. At the end of the hall, 2 windows let in just enough light to identify the front door. My hands were still shaking as I pulled it open and threw myself over the threshold. Once outside, my hopes were crushed by the sound of footsteps racing up the basement stairs. I shut the door softly as I heard his first infuriated scream. There was just enough starlight to see I was on an abandoned house's creaky porch. I had no clue where I was, and the few other houses also appeared empty. The only car on the street had to be the one Bateman drove, but it was locked. I kept moving farther away. I wanted to disappear into the darkness and blend in with the night. There was less than 50 yards between me and the murder house when a spotlight shined a few feet to my left. I dropped to my stomach and managed to roll behind a tree just as the beam passed by. But he wasn't giving up. Bateman's voice was full of hatred as he threatened me with vile, disgusting things or promised to take me home. Any grip that man had on reality was long gone. He waved the light around randomly, leaving me no time to move or check his position without the risk of being seen. I focused on finding the best direction to run, and that's when I noticed space for a culvert dug alongside the road. It was nothing but an overgrown ditch now, but I laid flat and crawled through the tall grass. It was my only chance. When the light passed back the other way, I didn't hesitate. I didn't know what lay at the end of that long abandoned road, but there was no turning back. In the ditch, I felt like everything had to be okay. I'd come too far to die. Daydreams of returning to that house with the police kept me going as my body burned from the itch of 1,000 bug bites in places that already hurt too much to think about. It felt like hours later when I realized the light was gone, but I was still too afraid to leave the ditch. Even at the end, when there was nowhere else to crawl, I stayed in place to examine my surroundings. In front of me was a real road with painted lines, and a single light shone in the distance to my left. That's where I headed. Once out of view from that street, I felt safe enough to stand. 2 cars passed by before I made it to those distant lights. I should have flagged them down for help, but I hid from both, convinced it was Bateman. When I finally did make it to the light source, I cried tears of joy to see it was a normal house, and several more were further down the street. Unfortunately, I looked more frightening than the actual psycho. The first house wouldn't even open the door, the next 2 slammed them in my face, and finally the 4th was kind enough to listen to me through a closed window. She was a little old lady. I can't blame her for being suspicious, but eventually we were able to come to an agreement. She called 911 while I made myself as small as possible in a dark corner of her porch. Once help was on the way, she felt safe enough to let me inside. It took almost 40 minutes for help to arrive, but when it did, I made sure the police understood exactly which house I escaped from. In my terror, I had imagined Bateman was still out there looking for me, but he was gone. I met with a sketch artist, and finally, a week later, They found Bateman. He had no criminal record, but there was no doubt about his guilt. The bastard admitted to it immediately before requesting a lawyer, and you guys know the rest. Auctioneer, yes. Mr. Bateman would have spent the remainder of his life in a comfortable institution had he not escaped. The state of Massachusetts could not be trusted with his care, and fortunately, they now believe he's dead. Mrs. Perkins, thank you for sharing your story with us. I know you're all ready for the main event, so without further delay, please enjoy this short video while the benefactors make their final decision. All right, now that we have a break with our audience, let's see how they feel about tonight's guests. It's astounding how much more people will say when they think they're speaking to a small, intimate group. But that Laird boy might be a little too smart for us, eh? I like him, but it's a good thing you all are the ones actually deciding which guest will get their private meeting. Please turn your attention to the poll and cast your vote now. Who will have the taste of sweet revenge on Saturday? Will it be the grieving parents or the courageous heroine? I don't often choose favorites, but it's hard not to when we have a firecracker like Shelley. While the votes are coming in, benefactors, are you ready to hold the auction? For those joining us for the first time, we'll replay the footage for the guests who will think it's happening live. This way, the audience always wins. And we're back. Thank you, guests, for your continued patience, and now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Mr. and Mrs. Edwards, benefactor number 3, is a parent like yourself. They would be honored to bid on your behalf. Laird family, benefactor Marwan, saw a bit of their younger self in Jason. Since he has declined the prospect of seeing Mr. Bateman in person, you may potentially choose someone to go in your stead. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Perkins. It's no surprise benefactor number 2, who once survived a similar attack, is overjoyed to be your sponsor. My only question is, are you ready to start the bidding? 5 minutes later. Going once, going twice. Sold for $3.5 million to benefactor number 2. Wow, what a roller coaster. Ms. Perkins, pack your bags because we'll be seeing you Saturday. Saturday, auctioneer. Hello, Shelley. It's so nice to finally meet you in person. So, over the last few days, we've discussed what you'd like to see happen here, and I think you'll be pleased with the work we've done. Considering we do this full time, we already owned most of the items you requested, but the gynecologist chair was a wonderful addition to our collection. We've named it Perkins. I think it's going to be a guest favorite. Oh, watch your step. One of the technicians hasn't finished putting this one together yet. You strap the subject's arm to that piece, then you turn the lever to twist. Now that you've seen the theater, let's go get Bateman. I thought you'd like to see his new forever home. And don't worry about the other prisoners, they're here for the same reason, but they're completely harmless. Judging by our recent conversations, I assume you aren't squeamish. Shelley Perkins. No, you don't have to worry about... Holy cow, are his eyes gone? Whoa, there are so many of them. Auctioneer. You seem surprised. Most people have the same idea, that it's better to keep them alive. The only problem is, we can't tell the future. What if something happens and they get away? Then we would be responsible for letting these dangerous animals loose into society. That's why we remove their eyes and castrate them before they're transported to Sweet Mercy Zoo. Even if they were to get out of their cells, they'd have no idea where to go next. Obviously, that doesn't include Carl. We didn't want to be presumptuous. You'll find him exactly as you saw him on the live stream, but we have surgeons standing by in case you need assistance, or the subject gets a little too close to death. Shelley Perkins. That's brilliant. I can't wait to get started. Auctioneer. I love your enthusiasm. You should consider a career with us. We're always looking for people who truly understand the importance of our work, and the pay is marvelous. Just something to think about. Here we are, Mr. Bateman. Your date has arrived. What are your thoughts on this chilling story? How do you feel about the unconventional approach taken by the characters and the auctioneer? Do you think justice has been served in this unusual scenario? If you want more gripping and unconventional stories, make sure to follow for regular updates. Your support means a lot.